You ever have one of those moments where your whole life shifts like the ground you're standing on isn't what you thought? That's what happened to me, standing on a freshly laid gravel path outside my fancy-ass estate in Pasadena, when a kid's voice cut through the dusk like a siren. "Don't move, man," he yelled, all skinny arms and wild eyes, clutching a beat-up skateboard like it was his lifeline. That kid Darius, barely 12, with sneakers held together by duct tape saved my life that night, and I didn't even know his name yet. I'm Ethan Caldwell, used to run a real estate empire that turned neighborhoods into profit margins without a second thought. That evening, I was just stepping out to check the new pathway my landscaper swore was state-of-the-art. Then Darius, this scrappy kid who'd been sleeping behind my dumpster, told me he'd seen two guys messing with the wiring under the stones the night before. "They said it'd zap you good," he whispered, his voice shaking but dead serious. I looked down at the path. Perfect, expensive, deadly. My first thought, this kid's got to be scamming me. But his eyes, man, they weren't lying. They were scared, not for him, but for me. I called my guy, Mike, from Pacific Volt and the cops, non-emergency line, because I wasn't about to make a scene. 15 minutes later, they're pulling up a stone, and they're at Issa rigged circuit, a homemade relay hooked to the lights. One step in the rain, and I'd have been toast. The lead tech, this grizzled dude named Ray, just shook his head. "You got lucky, Mr. Caldwell. Real lucky." I looked over at Darius, standing by the fence, arms wrapped around himself like he was holding his world together. "What's your name, kid?" I asked. "Darius," he mumbled, barely looking up. "You live here?" He shrugged. "Kinda. Your alley's quiet." That hit me like a brick. Here I am, king of my castle, and this kid's calling my trash pile home. I didn't know it then, but that moment cracked something open in me. I'd built a life signing papers, shaking hands, ignoring the fallout. My company, Caldwell Ventures, bought up blocks, flipped them, displaced folks like it was just numbers. But Darius? He wasn't a number. He was real, and he'd waited all night to keep me alive because of some old article he'd kept about me funding a shelter called Haven Place. "You looked like you might give a damn," he said later, over a plate of reheated lasagna in my kitchen. I didn't deserve that faith, not then. The next few days, I started digging. The wiring job wasn't random. It led back to a guy named Marcus Tate, a contractor I'd fired after he botched a deal and lost his crew's pensions. He'd sent me hate mail, but I'd brushed it off. Rich guy problems, right? Except now I saw it. The evictions, the shady permits, the shell companies funneling cash to City Hall. My name was on every dotted line, but I'd never looked close enough to see the blood. Darius, though, he saw everything. Kid had a notebook, mapping every car that lingered too long near my gate. "This one," he pointed to a sketch of a black SUV, "was outside your place 3 nights last week." Things got hairy fast. A grainy photo of Darius walking to a corner store showed up in my mailbox with a note, "Back off, or he's next." My blood ran cold. I dragged this kid into my mess, and now they were circling him like wolves. I called an old college buddy, Sarah Klein, a reporter with a knack for sniffing out corruption. She met us in a dive bar downtown, her laptop glowing with files I'd pulled from my own server's proof of bribes, fake inspections, even a link to a councilwoman, Lena Voss, who'd been greasing her campaign with my money. "This is bigger than you, Ethan," Sarah said, her voice low. "You're poking a bear with a stick." Then came the night they came for me. 2 a.m., alarms screaming, cameras catching shadows moving through my garage. I locked myself in my study, hit the panic button, and streamed it all live to Sarah's network. 6 guys in fake utility vests, one barking, "Find the drives." I stood there, heart pounding, gripping a steel paperweight like it was a weapon. "Smile, assholes," I said, pointing to the blinking red light of my backup cam. They froze, then bolted when sirens wailed. Sarah's leak hit the internet before they even cleared my driveway. The fallout was chaos. Lena Voss resigned by dawn. Marcus Tate was arrested, spilling names to save his skin. Court was Bertom on the stand, laying out my own sins, admitting I'd signed off on deals that left families like Darius's on the street. But the real gut punch was Darius testifying, his voice steady as he told the judge about his mom dying in a shelter because no one cared enough to fix the heat. The room went dead silent. Even Lena looked away. We won. Voss and her cronies went down, And I poured my money into Haven House, a new shelter where nobody gets turned away. Darius mentors kids there now, teaching them to draw, to speak up. One night, at a community barbecue, he grabbed the mic and said, "Surviving ain't about hiding, it's about showing up, even when you're scared." I swear, I've never been prouder of anyone. But here's the thing, winning didn't erase the scars. I still see Darius check over his shoulder sometimes. I still get emails from ghosts of my past, warning me to stay quiet. The city's cleaner, but it's not clean. So, what do you think? Can one person, one kid, really change a broken system? Or are we just shouting into the void? Drop a comment, tell me your take. Maybe you've seen this kind of fight where you live. Share it. Let's keep this conversation going.